I remember that night as clearly as if it were yesterday. I'm sure I'll never forget it until the day I die. It was a summer night in 2004. My parents weren't home, so I was alone in my room, computer on, sipping soda and playing games. Back then in middle school, having a lot of sun icons on your QQ profile was a huge source of pride. The strange incident happened precisely at midnight. I remember it vividly. Exactly at 0 hour, I heard the sound of luggage being dragged across the floor. Then it abruptly fell silent. Immediately after, a lock clicked open from the room next door. Before I could even process it, I turned back to see my computer screen had frozen. The next second, the frozen computer suddenly blared a video call ringtone. The sound echoed through the quiet room. The mouse wouldn't move. The keyboard was useless. As I stood there, staring blankly, the video call automatically connected. On the screen, a figure appeared. A man in his early 20s, with a scruffy beard, a table in front of him littered with cigarette butts, his face haggard and exhausted. We just stared at each other through the screen in silence for a long time. It wasn't until he finally spoke, Alex. He called my name in disbelief, his face filled with shock. That was my name. For some reason, a powerful sense of unease welled up inside me. A feeling that this video call should not be happening. Annoyed, I tried to move the mouse, but it wouldn't budge. As I bent down, intending to pull the power cord, the man called out, stopping me. "Wait," he said, "you have a puppy-shaped birthmark on your ankle. And also, when you watch Digimon, you always close the living room door to watch by yourself because you're afraid the neighborhood girl will call you childish because you really like her." Damn it, who was he? He was clearly right about everything, and I felt genuinely infuriated. "From what I know about you," he continued, "if I tell you, you'll only get angrier, and we won't be able to talk. I can only tell you up front that we're very close, and I'm not a bad person." I furrowed my brow. It was then that I noticed the music playing from his side. It was quite good. Go home, return to the good things at the beginning. Don't give up so easily. I hesitated and asked, "Is that a J. Chu song?" "What? The song you're playing? It sounds like J. Chu." He froze. "All right," he said. "I've never heard it before. Is it new?" "It's an old one, released in 28. "What?" I grew even more confused. It was clearly 2004 right now. "Alex, on your side," he thought for a moment. "What date is it today?" "August 6th, I replied. "August 6th, 2004, he murmured. I saw him pick up a rectangular object, its entire front a glowing screen. "What's that?" I asked, pointing at the thing in his hand. "How can that be a phone? How do you make calls without a keypad?" He paid no attention to me, manipulating the so-called phone as if he were looking at something. Suddenly, he snapped his head up. I started, startled. His face was extremely serious. "Alex, I don't know how much longer this call will last. Time is limited, so I'll tell you the most important things. The house you're living in will be sold cheaply by your parents 3 months from now, and you'll move out, because a murder will have occurred in this building, turning it into a haunted house that terrifies everyone. The time of the murder is tonight. He spoke those dreadful words with a face completely devoid of pretense. Alex, I can tell you your future. After that incident, you'll change completely. You'll hate studying, get into fights frequently, live recklessly, then gamble, and fall deep into debt. Why will you change? He gave a bitter laugh. Because tonight, while engrossed in your game, you'll ignore the unusual signs from next door. The neighborhood girl you like, you'll always think you could have saved her. So you'll treat everyone as the culprit, seek revenge on everyone, and punish yourself. I was utterly stunned. I suddenly remembered the sounds I just heard from next door. The murder happens tonight, he said. Right next door to you. Was he lying to me right now, or was this a cruel prank? Countless thoughts flashed through my mind in an instant, but he spoke as fast as the wind, not giving me a chance to think. My advice for you is just two things. First, don't use a cleaver. You're not strong enough. Find a fruit knife in the house. Second, if you want to save her, do it as fast as possible, or it'll be... Praying to all. I undermine your sign. I die right guy. She's running out of time. He looked me straight in the eyes. I swallowed hard. The door to the house next door was slightly ajar. I clutched the fruit knife and silently pushed the door open. The living room was pitch black, with only a faint light flickering from the room at the end of the hallway. In front of that door, a giant suitcase lay conspicuously. It felt as if I had touched something. I looked down and saw a pair of pink sneakers. Mustering all my courage, I stepped silently into the room. On the bed, an adult lay motionless. I crept closer, my hand trembling as I held the knife. It was an adult's body, eyes wide open, pupils dilated. There were distinct hand-shaped bruises on the throat. The crumpled bedsheet showed that the victim had struggled desperately before suffocating. I had defeated enemies in games, witnessed countless scenes of violence in movies, but standing before the strangled body of a person, terror still enveloped me. My whole body was paralyzed. I couldn't control my trembling. Suddenly, something touched my ankle. I nearly screamed. In a panic, I looked down to see a girl's hand reaching out from under the bed, grasping my ankle. I recognized the wristwatch. It was Chloe's. She recognized the puppy-shaped birthmark on my ankle. The sound of flushing water came from the bathroom. Her hand pulled my leg fiercely towards under the bed. Chloe, my childhood best friend, the girl who lived next door. Both of us hid under the bed, our view obscured by the sheet. Slowly, a pair of leather shoes appeared in the room. I couldn't control my trembling. The hand clutched me tightly, and I turned to see Chloe's face filled with terror. The leather shoes moved slowly around the room, heading toward the large suitcase. The zipper hissed, and then another pair of helpless legs appeared on the floor. The body was lifted and shoved into the suitcase. As the owner of the leather shoes bent down to zip it up, I finally caught a clear glimpse of his back. A man with bulging muscles like boulders. Seeing that terrifying mass of muscle, the knife in my hand almost slipped from my grasp. thought. If we were discovered, we would both die a gruesome death. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. I forced myself not to make a sound. Chloe's father, don't blame me. I had no other choice. Finally, the man sighed, as if speaking to the body in the suitcase. He stood up, dragging the suitcase out of the room. A long while later, the front door slammed shut. I was drenched in sweat, feeling as if I had just escaped a nightmare. Chloe still clung tightly to my arm, absolutely refusing to let go. I waited for a very long time, until there was absolutely no sound left in the living room. I crawled out quietly, and Chloe wanted to follow. I gently tapped her arm 3 times. She understood, staying hidden under the bed. I mustered all my courage, approached the door, and poked half my head out to observe the living room. It was empty, only the suitcase remained. Had he really left? The dim light from the bedroom cast a pale glow into the living room, illuminating Chloe's pink sneakers that I had kicked earlier, now lying still. In an instant, every hair on my body stood on end. The killer must have seen those shoes. He knew there was still a child in the house. From the edge of the door, a large hand reached out and grabbed my head. Immediately after, my head was squeezed tightly and slammed against the door frame. I lost all strength and collapsed to the ground. Struggling to open my eyes, I saw his figure. He was hiding outside, pressed against the door frame, deliberately luring the child out. The knife. I reached for the knife, but he kicked it far away. He bent down, one hand tightly gripping my throat, lifting me off the ground. My throat felt like it was tearing open. My eyes rolled back. I could barely breathe. Suddenly, he froze. He snapped his head around, the girl's terrified scream. He had seen Chloe under the bed. He let go of me, and my head slammed to the ground, my consciousness almost fading. In a blur, I saw Chloe screaming in terror, crawling out from under the bed. She cried for help, but barely uttered a sound before the man threw her to the ground, squeezing her throat. Her body struggled violently, but she couldn't make any sound. Ni Ella Diane Garay Dandel. I could only think of one way to save both of us. I couldn't stand up. I could only crawl with all of my might towards the living room window. Time had never moved so slowly. Faster, even faster. I no longer heard Chloe's struggles. Finally, I reached the living room window. I braced myself to stand, struggling to lean against the window. Help us! Damn it, damn it! I screamed with all my might, but my throat was squeezed tight, producing only small, hoarse sounds. Chloe! I didn't know when I had started to like her. When I was bullied by other boys as a child, she would fight back for me. When our homeroom teacher suddenly appeared outside the window, she would tap my arm 3 times. When my parents beat me for failing exams, she would mock me from outside while still bringing ice for my bruises. Looking back, it seemed she always looked after me. Well, now it was my turn. I remembered clearly. From the living room down to the 3rd floor, there was a rain canopy. It always rattled loudly during a thunderstorm. This was every last ounce of strength left in my body. Every joint trembling, I forced myself to stand, braced my hands on the windowsill, and climbed up. With my final strength, I coughed violently, my throat tearing open with a pain like a razor, twisting inside. A large mouthful of blood uncontrollably spurted onto the adjacent window, splattering in a radiating pattern. The man's hands were bulging with veins, muscles rippling, while Chloe beneath him was barely breathing. Hearing the commotion, he turned his head. The neighbors must have heard. I smirked. "It's your turn to run, you bastard." The man understood my intention. He finally let go of Chloe and lunged ferociously towards me. It was too late. I lost my balance and fell. The wall, the window frame, the man's figure by the door. Everything disappeared in a dizzying flash. The bastard! Just a few short seconds later, a thud echoed, like something falling into water. My body pierced through the rain canopy. Countless pieces of metal and plastic scattered like spray. An earth-shattering explosion. The last image I saw was all the lights coming on. Countless faces poked out, some looking up to see the unfamiliar figure of the man by the window. Drops of blood were dripping onto the window. Would they see it? They must have. Because I heard someone scream, "I'll call an ambulance." Everyone called the police immediately. The man's figure hastily vanished from the window frame. If only I had died there, I would have been a hero. 4 years later, on an autumn day in 2008, under the warm sunlight, a basketball rolled to my feet. Chloe squatted down. Some children in the distance were calling, and she tossed the ball back. I sat in my wheelchair, watching the children run and play, a hint of helplessness in my eye. Yes. Hey! That night, thanks to the rain canopy cushioning the impact, I miraculously survived. But the doctors told us that my spinal vertebrae were crushed and nerve necrosis was irreversible damage. I survived, but I became permanently disabled. "Chloe," I said, "many of our classmates have passed their university entrance exams. We're sunbathing here by the building." She let out a soft hum. "Chloe, do you hate me?" I asked her after a long sigh. When I spoke those words, I didn't dare to look her in the eye at all. A lot had happened in those 4 years. That night, after falling from such a height, I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up in the hospital, the first sight I saw was Chloe sitting by my bedside. The mark on her neck was clearly visible. I knew that scar would stay with her for life. She looked at me, full of confusion, wanting to hug me, but unsure if she should. Finally, she squatted down and gently tapped my arm twice. Strangely, even though we had never agreed on the meaning of this signal, I clearly felt the message she wanted to convey. Thank you. After being discharged from the hospital, we together arranged Chloe's father's funeral. On the day of the burial, Chloe cried silently, burning the case report for her father. It read, "The culprit, Hijacked Dan, after escaping, hid for many days. Seeing no escape, he surrendered to the police station, was arrested and punished according to the law, admitting to all his crimes." Chloe looked towards the coffin. She was silent, her back beginning to tremble slightly. I knew she was probably remembering the bone-chilling terror of that night. That night, a few details still made us shiver, even before I arrived at her house. In the deep silence of the night, she was startled awake. She caught a glimpse of a man coming out of her father's bedroom, heading straight for the bathroom. His hands were stained with blood from the strangulation. She was incredibly scared. She secretly entered her father's bedroom, wanting to wake him up. But when she reached the bed, she discovered he was dead. Fear, terror pierced her heart. She couldn't resist screaming. But in the very next second, the sound of a door opening and stealthy footsteps echoed from the living room. That very sound sobered her. Nay, she bit her lip until it bled, suppressing the urge to scream. She crept under the bed, trembling helplessly, and then saw the puppy-shaped birthmark on my ankle appear by the bed. At the funeral, I sat in my wheelchair, adding joss paper to the burning furnace, my back also trembling from the lingering fear. If I had been even 1 second late, just 1 second, Chloe would have been in that coffin. Alex, Chloe next to me suddenly called softly, interrupting my thoughts. Can your family adopt me? She asked. When I grow up, I want to be your wife. I was startled. She lowered her gaze. She burned the joss paper, her eyes downcast. The police told me when you were still unconscious. That man and my father were colleagues at the bank. They embezzled a lot of money together, she said. The bank quickly discovered the missing money and began an investigation. That man said he thought if he could make my father disappear permanently, fabricating a scene where my father absconded with the money, he could escape blame himself. That's why he didn't use a knife, but strangled him to death. She wiped her eyes. And then, you know, Alex, that night, he thought I wasn't home, and I really wasn't supposed to be home. My father had initially taken me to my aunt's house. Perhaps he sensed something. But my aunt didn't like me, told me I was freeloading, and cursed me for being a girl who cut off the family line. I couldn't stand it, so I ran away. Now she even believes I caused my father's death. It was then I realized her only living relative left was that aunt. The fire in the joss paper furnace swayed quietly. She reached out and gently rubbed my calf. Besides, I have to be your wife, to take care of you. Her eyes were full of remorse. The 4 corner nails were hammered into the coffin. The shaman chanted a long, mournful song. I gently tapped Chloe's arm twice. At that moment, I didn't realize it. It was from that moment that her future life had been completely destroyed by me. Chloe was eventually adopted by my parents. For 4 years, I watched firsthand as her life was eroded to pay for my treatment. Our family was deep in debt. Chloe had no choice. With my parents busy earning money to pay off debts, only she could take care of me. She set aside her studies at a beautiful, youthful age, becoming my personal caregiver. Laundry, cooking, tending to my physical needs, dealing with debt collectors, and sometimes working extra jobs to earn money. She was like a flower, growing more tired, more withered each day. Then, time brought us to this autumn day in 2008. Chloe pushed my wheelchair out to sunbathe by the building. A group of children, just dismissed from school, walked past in the distance, dribbling a basketball. I suddenly realized it had been a very long time since we communicated in our old way. My finger gently tapped her arm twice, but her expressionless face no longer reacted. She just stared blankly at those free and joyful children with a distant look. Chloe, do you hate me? I asked her after a long silence. Time had worn away all thought. She could no longer answer this question. Is there something I didn't do well? She asked me anxiously. Her response tore through me, exposing the ugliest truth in my heart. That morning, my parents had advised her to give up her studies for me. They both thought I was asleep, but I was awake. I remained silent that morning. I knew better than anyone that I should have stopped them. I should have let her let go of her guilt. I should have told her to live for herself, not become someone's long-term nanny out of gratitude. But that morning, I only clenched my fists in cowardice. If I had died there in 2004, perhaps I would have been a hero. In the autumn of 2008, Chloe next to me was incredibly startled. In my wheelchair, for some reason, I dry-heaved violently, retching until tears streamed down my face. From that day on, I developed a condition. Whenever I saw myself in a mirror, I would feel so nauseous, I wanted to vomit. I hated the image in the mirror, the person who had dragged everyone down. Under the autumn sunlight, Chloe gently patted my back. At that very moment, I heard a familiar melody. Go home. Return to the good things at the beginning. Don't give up so easily. I froze. It was a child on their way home from school, humming that familiar song. The song I wouldn't forget until I died. Hey, what are you singing? I called out, asking foolishly. Huh? I asked what you're singing. I roared at it to answer me. The child was frightened by my demeanor. J. Chu's song, is it? When was this song released? Just last week. New album, the child said, standing there, confused. In my wheelchair, I couldn't help but let out a pathetic laugh. So that's how it is. So that's how it is, I muttered. I recalled that summer night in 2004, the melody of the song playing from the computer. In that moment, I finally understood. If only I could find that man from that year, I would still have a chance to catch the video call in 2004. Contact my past self and fix everything. As long as I could find him, from that day on, I tried everything. I posted his picture online, put up missing person posters. I decorated my room exactly like his room, afraid of forgetting any detail. But I never imagined finding one person could be so difficult. Day after day, year after year. I was tricked countless times, but still not a single clue. What was his last name? His first name? Where was he now? I was like a frantic withered tree. However unwilling I was, nothing progressed. Absolutely nothing. Time silently flowed until a summer night in 2021. On August 6th, 2021, Chloe was working a night shift at the convenience store. My parents wanted to come to our rented apartment to take care of me, but I refused. Most of the time, I just wanted to be alone. I sat in my wheelchair, lost in thought. In my room, before the old computer, chain smoking one cigarette after another. The ashtray overflowed with cigarette butts. I aimlessly surfed the web, searching for faint clues. On my phone, a song played randomly. When the music ended, a familiar melody began. If there's too much resentment towards this world, falling down and not daring to move forward. I froze there. August 6th, 2021. Late at night, exactly midnight. Go home, return to the good things at the beginning. My whole body began to tremble uncontrollably. The computer screen in front of me froze. The very next second, the frozen computer suddenly blared a video call, ringtone, echoing in the silent night. The video call automatically connected as I watched. The face of a naive young boy appeared on the other end. The image of me in the video, however, had long hair, a scruffy beard, and an emaciated face, sitting in the room I had seen. In that moment, even the feeling of nausea was suppressed by my surging heartbeat. Finally, I had met the older brother I had been searching for all this time. My 2004 self and I faced each other in silence for a long time until Alex, I called his name, my 2004 self. On the other end of the video, annoyedly moved the mouse. Seeing that he couldn't disconnect the video, he bent down. I knew. He was about to pull the power cord. Wait, I said. You have a P-shaped birthmark on your ankle. And also, when you watch Digimon, you always close the living room door to watch by yourself. Afraid the neighborhood girl will call you childish. He froze, then sat upright. Who the hell are you? A strange feeling flashed through me. Everything seemed to be replaying. No, it's not the same. I still have a chance to change everything in the future, including Chloe's life. Alex, knowing your personality, I know if I tell you everything, you'll only get angrier, and we won't be able to talk. So I can only tell you up front that we're very close, and I'm not a bad person. I picked up my phone and checked the time. It was 02. Chloe's father has already been strangled. How? Roughly calculating the time it takes for him to go next door, we only have a maximum of 2 minutes. Any later, and Chloe won't make it. I opened the timer app on my phone. He stared at me, bewildered. A Jade Shoe song, huh? He asked. Is it new? The thing I'm holding is a phone, I said at dizzying speed. How can it be? How do you make calls without a keypad? Alex, I looked at him seriously. Time is limited, so I'll tell you the main points. I know you like Chloe very much, but tonight a murder will happen right at her house. Right now, there are 50 seconds left. If you want to save her, don't use a cleaver. You're not strong enough. The fruit knife is on the living room table. In 40 seconds, you'll hide under the bed and hear the bad guy leave the living room. But that's a feint. He's hiding outside the door, deliberately luring you out to deal with you as smoothly as possible. In 30 seconds, your right hand will hold the knife and stab directly. No, that's wrong. I suddenly remembered something, speeding up, almost roaring. We shouldn't think about confronting him. In 15 seconds, after entering Chloe's living room, immediately throw anything you can find onto the rain canopy below. The more, the better. The noisier, the better. Then lead him here. I held out. It's so our. Only then will Chloe be safe. Only then will she have a chance to call for help. And I will help you. 3 seconds, Alex. There's no more time. On the other end of the video, he was startled by my shout and started to run. His retreating figure disappeared from the video screen. I picked up my phone and typed the keywords. 2004 Than, Lu District, Ha Tan Road murder case. A news article appeared. It was about that year's incident. The events that occurred that night The words in the article were still clearly etched in my mind. The culprit, Hijacked, broke into the crime scene. The neighbor boy entered the living room, almost victimized along with the girl. The boy fell from a high floor, attracting the attention of neighbors. The culprit fled. The girl was fortunately saved. The killer had no more hiding place and finally surrendered. My hands trembled uncontrollably. Now, the only thing I could do was pray. Bang! A loud thud echoed. I knew it was the sound of a heavy object hitting the rain canopy. Then, another bang. On the other end of the video, the door of the room directly opposite my living room. I saw countless lights flickering on outside the living room window. The neighbors had been awakened by the noise. How were Chloe and I doing? I pressed almost my entire body against the computer screen, straining my ears to listen. Frantic footsteps stormed into the house. On the other end of the video, I saw my figure appear, frantically running back to the room. But in the very next second, a large figure chased, tackling me to the ground. The man bent down and squeezed my throat, but clearly paused for a beat. "Son, save me too." Chloe's desperate scream echoed from next door. It was 24 Chloe, screaming with all her might, "There's a bad guy. Help!" The man lifted his head in surprise. "Look at me," I roared. His gaze finally landed on the screen. "After 17 years, we finally meet again. I am the only one who knows the future," I said, "and I am also the only one who can save you." A hint of bewilderment flashed across his face. Not enough? Still not enough. I couldn't give him a chance to surrender. I had to make him die here. Listen carefully. Tonight is the first time you've killed someone. Because you're too nervous, you forgot to close the door. You heard that the victim's daughter went to a relative's house, so you thought the victim was home alone. You exposed too many vulnerabilities. You will definitely be caught in the end. I said, "So what should I do?" he asked me anxiously. On the other end of the line, new sounds emerged, very faint, but I heard the neighbors coming upstairs. He was trapped. He had nowhere left to run. "Run right now!" I laughed. "Trust me, you can break out." The last image I saw was the man, without hesitation, leaving my 2004 self and rushing out to escape the chaos. The sounds from the other end became incredibly noisy. There was cursing, fighting, but eventually all sounds gradually quieted down. Police sirens blared from afar, getting closer and closer until they stopped completely downstairs. I glued my eyes to the screen. My 2004 self in the video coughed violently and sat up, bruises from strangulation visible on his neck. But not serious. I sighed in relief. My 2004 self was leaning against the wall, panting nightly. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he coughed. I heard the neighbors subduing him, and police sirens too. "Chloe seems to be crying. Go find an adult. Ask them to take both of you to the hospital." And also, I hesitated, then fell silent. What should I say to him now? I thought for a very long time, and finally found the answer. "Alex, make a little more effort. Use your identity to say one thing to Chloe." "What thing?" "Tell her that Chloe, she owes no one anything. She belongs only to herself. You must always say this. Even if she gets tired of it, Say it until you both forget everything that happened tonight. Oh, brother, he said, can I ask you a question? More sounds from outside. The police were escorting the man downstairs. He looked at me. You're from the future, aren't you? Just as I was about to answer, the frozen computer suddenly came back to life. The video window disappeared completely, leaving only the previously opened website with an online game ad cartoon looping in the corner of the screen. I stood frozen in place. Everything that had happened felt like an unreal dream. Boom! The sound was like summer fireworks. I looked down. It was my phone. My phone was completely disassembling, as if invisible hands were taking it apart. From the screen to the components, everything separated, floating in the air. Boom! Another firework-like sound. Next, the bed frame, the mattress. Each skeletal slat disassembled into its smallest units, suspended in mid-air. Boom, boom, boom. Finally, I understood. My entire surroundings were being disassembled by an invisible force. Beams and walls separated, the walls fragmented as if in a vacuum. Everything floated, including me. I saw each disassembled component transforming at dizzying speed, constantly changing in material shape and structure. Then everything abruptly stopped. A moment later, the disassembly process seemed to reverse. Each smallest unit returned to its original position. Steel twisted back together, walls reconnected, the phone reformed. I plopped onto the floor. I pushed myself up, immediately realizing my legs could bear weight. I swayed to test myself. It had been exactly 17 years, and this was the first time I had stood upright. I couldn't believe my eyes. The house was exquisitely decorated with polished wooden floors, and on the wall hung a family photo of 4, me, my parents, and Chloe. Finally, I understood why that video call had abruptly ended. The universe had settled, the situation arranged. But what exactly was this outcome? My phone vibrated in my pocket. I answered. It was Chloe calling. Her voice was clear on the phone. Tomorrow, I'll take Mom and Dad back to Sanlu. The doctor said it's just a minor digestive issue. Nothing serious, just self-scaring. City housing prices have risen again. I just feel you should consider buying one. Mom and Dad are getting old. Small illnesses are fine. But if there's anything serious, the city hospital is still better than the district one. Don't be so quiet. I'm your sister. You have to listen to me when I talk. Her voice was full of dissatisfaction, but I burst out laughing. It was strange, though not at all appropriate. At this moment, I only wanted to confirm one thing. My finger gently tapped the phone mic twice. A moment of silence on the other end, then she replied with 2 gentle taps. Is something wrong with your head? You haven't said a word all day. I just came back from the past. It's very complicated. Let me calm down, okay? The phone call didn't last long. It seemed she had settled in the city and had to stay up late to make a PowerPoint. I also had too many things to verify. I pushed open the window. The street seen by the river was still Thanluo district. And this was the old building I had lived in since childhood. The only difference was that it had been renovated. 2004 Thanlu district, Hatan Road, murder case. I opened my phone and typed keywords to search. Page after page of news appeared. Finally, I knew how that night ended. On that night, in 2004, I pushed open Chloe's door. No one understood why the first thing I did upon entering the house was grab the tea tray from the table and throw it forcefully onto the rain canopy. The man heard the commotion and stepped out of the room. Almost simultaneously, I turned around and ran straight home. The man gave chase, eventually subduing me in my own house. The man's son was surprised. The neighbor's lights had been on for a long time. Chloe heard the commotion, crawled out from under the bed, and rushed to the living room window. In 2004, I was pinned to the floor, struggling desperately, while Chloe screamed with all her might. What happened after that was almost not recorded. I could only rely on chats between me and Chloe, and me and my parents, to piece together the clues. That night, the man was arrested and sentenced to death with a suspended execution. Chloe was adopted by my parents. It turned out that as long as people aren't pushed to their limits, they won't be so selfish. They treated her like their own daughter. Gradually, she emerged from the darkness, went to school, and entered university. Later, she worked for a foreign company in the city, buying a small apartment before housing prices soared too high. A life dependent on no one, belonging only to herself. In the photo on the wall, Chloe's neck no longer had a mark. She hadn't had nightmares for many years, and my dry heaving condition had also disappeared. Everything was arranged. Stop messing with that old dilapidated computer all day. Go to bed early. Chloe messaged on WeChat. Old, dilapidated computer. I scrolled through my chat history for a moment, then realized that ever since 2004, because I had tried to keep it, that old computer had always been preserved. Even when I moved houses, bought a new one, I still took it with me. It was now placed in the study room. The study window was wide open, and the cool night breeze swept in. A huge monitor, a white computer tower, sat firmly on the computer desk next to the window. The computer screen was still lit. I reached out to close the window when I suddenly noticed a news page open on the computer. The culprit of the horrific Than Lul murder case in 2004 released from prison. Online public opinion suggested that the killer Ma's older sister married a high-ranking official in 2007. Thanks to good conduct and continuous sentence reductions, public opinion suspected external influence. Similar unverified opinions were still spreading. I was stunned. In previous interviews, the culprit Ma had repeatedly mentioned that time could be reversed. According to him, he believed that anyone had the chance to change things that had happened in the past. Perhaps he meant to atone for past mistakes with his actions. My eyes were glued to the words "time can be reversed." A slight unease stirred within me. Time can be reversed. Hey, it sounds like madness, but I had witnessed this. The culprit, Anna, was released from prison on August 1st, 2021. I furrowed my brow, glancing at the digital clock on the table. August 6th, 2021. 10 minutes until midnight. Time. This night again. Finally, I understood where my unease came from. On that summer night in 2004, that man in my own house had once seen the future. But how could he confirm it? I clutched my head, everything that had happened flashing in my mind. The first summer night of 2021, I collapsed before the computer desk. Alex, I can tell you your future. After that murder, you'll change completely. You'll hate studying, get into fights frequently, live recklessly, then gamble, take out online loans, and fall deep into debt. The second summer night of 2021, I roared into Chloe's living room. Immediately throw everything you find, anything, onto the rain canopy below. The more, the better. The noisier, the better. Then, lure him here. Only then will Chloe be safe, and I will help you. In the case report, the man's entire criminal plan was laid out. The culprit Ma believed that if he just made Chloe's father disappear, fabricating a scene where the victim packed up and fled, he could dump the entire cursed debt onto his accomplice. My eyes widened. In essence, that man and I were the same. Both gamblers. A figure appeared behind me. I turned my head in shock, but it was too late. My head was seized by a monstrous hand and slammed hard onto the table. I stumbled limply and fell to the ground, my head yanked up and slammed against the floor several more times, my ears ringing, consciousness fading. He yanked my head up, meticulously scrutinizing my face. He had aged considerably, his hair cut short, but his murderous gaze had never changed. Indeed, the person I saw in 2004 was you. He grinned excitedly. How did he get in? I raised my hand, trying to struggle, but immediately my head received another heavy blow. I met many skilled masters in prison. You know, he said, lubricate the lock-picking tools, and it won't make a sound. Now it's your turn to answer. You used this computer to call back to 2004, didn't you? He pointed to the machine beside me. How is that possible? I opened my eyes with difficulty, glancing at the clock. 1 minute until midnight. If he was the one who received that video call, then it was all over. I can't tell you. A piercing pain shot through my heart as his shoes stomped on my fingertips, grinding them against the floor in a circular motion. I'll tell you. I screamed. You have to plug a camera into that computer. A camera! I tried to feign unbearable pain. The only thing I could do right now was destroy that computer. But I needed a chance. In 2004, you saw it in my house, remember? That old external camera was used for video calls, not the computer itself, I yelled. It's in my room, hidden in the bottom drawer of a wardrobe. There's a secret compartment. He looked at me suspiciously. 30 seconds left, I said. If you don't believe me, take me to get it. Just promise to spare me. If I die, you'll never be able to open that video. I saw him rummage in his pocket, pull out a knife. The cold blade slit my throat, and blood seeped out. He pressed the knife to my neck, and I slowly stood up. 15 seconds. I slowly stood, seeking balance. My pupils contracted with tension. My legs finally stood firm on the ground. This was it. 10 seconds. I recklessly struck hard, lunging straight at him by my side. Blood spurted. I knew the blade had cut my neck, but it didn't matter anymore. He lost his balance, stumbled back a few steps. Mustering my last ounce of strength, I roared, hugged the computer tower tightly, and lunged towards the window. It felt like a strong wind was rushing behind me. He was charging. 5 seconds. He wouldn't make it. The computer tower flew from my hands, crashing out the window, a series of crashing sounds. The monitor was violently yanked towards the window. I was pushed to the ground, his rough hand clutching the monitor, but I had already heard the sound of machinery shattering downstairs. The computer tower, its connection wires severed, shattered completely on the ground. In the messy study room, I clutched my neck, my face pale, from blood loss. 0 seconds. A deadly silence. I burst out laughing. However, I opened my eyes wide, filled with terror. The pitch-black computer screen suddenly blared a ringtone. The video call echoed in the deadly dark night. As we watched, the black screen restored a ghostly light. The video call flickered, finally connecting automatically. The face of a naive young boy appeared on the other end. It was my 2004 self. In the study room, the man laughed loudly. Time can be reversed. I was helpless like a sack, dragged to the blood-soaked computer desk. On the other end of the video, my 2004 self was terrified by this sight. He frantically bent down to pull the power cord, but was yelled at to stop by the man. Alex, do you want to kill this person? I saw my 2004 self slowly straighten up, his face filled with fear and confusion. The blade cut a line across my face. Fresh blood oozed out. Then the tip of the knife pointed at my Adam's apple. If you don't do as I say, I'll kill this person, he said. Alex, be obedient. Don't hurt anyone. I won't make it difficult for you. The request is very simple. Go to the room next door. Turn on the living room light. Someone will come out of the bathroom. No matter what he wants to do to you, you just need to say these 3 sentences very quickly. No, no, no. I desperately looked at my past self on the other end, wanting to speak, but my mouth was tightly covered by him. Only unclear sounds came out. Hijacked Dan, your methods of committing crime tonight are full of flaws, he said. In the future, you will definitely be caught. If you don't want to die, look under the bedroom bed, then follow me to the room next door. No, Chloe, the knife at my throat pressed a little deeper. My past self, on the other end of the video, got up in a panic, stumbled, and ran out. 2004, summer night. Yun, isang liyaw, trust. Summer night. 2021, summer night. Every second that passed was terrifyingly silent. I heard a short scream from Chloe, but the sound immediately disappeared. I desperately closed my eyes. Then, heavy footsteps echoed from the other end of the screen. My eyes were forced open. 2004. Chloe was unconscious, thrown to the ground in front of the screen. I saw my 2004 self, with a fruit knife pressed against his throat, not daring to make any sound. I didn't expect that after 17 years, we would be in the same situation. You? The man in front of the screen asked with a look of disbelief. He seemed to have guessed, but dared not believe. The man beside me laughed. I am the only one who knows the future, he said, and I am also the only one who can save you. Hijacked Dan, listen carefully. He said, I know this is your first time killing someone, and tonight you've made too many mistakes. Because you were nervous, you forgot to close the door, allowing a strange child to sneak in. You heard that the victim's daughter went to a relative's house, so you thought there was only one person home. You were preoccupied with moving the body, even forgot to check the room. You exposed too many vulnerabilities, and your thinking isn't thorough. You will definitely be caught in the end. Only I can save you now. What year is it on your side? 2004, Maniac Dan asked. He already had his answer. 2021. 17 years served in prison. The best years of your life were spent in confinement. He said, you're very likely to be sent back at any moment, and even implicate your sister. So what should I do? Hijacked. Dan next to me laughed. You must remember this. Don't think about ways to avoid being discovered anymore. I met countless people in here, and no matter how meticulously they did things, eventually everything would be exposed. I'll give you some numbers. Before the crime happens, you need to use these numbers to go to the place I tell you to exchange for money. It will be a huge sum. Share a part with your sister. Then, go to Myanmar. Go to Vietnam. Enough for you to be king of a realm. You have 3 days to complete these tasks. Chloe's father, in his attempt to escape, had placed 2 barrels of gasoline in his storage room. I've calculated it. From extinguishing the fire, conducting the autopsy, opening the case, to tracking you down. It'll take about 5 days in total, which is long enough. I gave a bitter laugh. I knew what they were planning now. Tonight, these 2 children will not survive. In the video, my 2004 version in the frame was clearly trembling. On the other end of the video, my 2004 self was about to scream for help, but was immediately strangled. I saw the boy struggling ceaselessly, even kicking the knife out of the opponent's hand. But this angered the other person, who squeezed his throat with both hands, veins bulging on his arm. The boy's naive face contorted with fear, gasping for breath and despair. I tried to think as hard as I could, mapping out every possibility in my mind. But I had no solution at all. Don't be impatient. Next will be your little girl. He patted my shoulder. This was the torture he inflicted on me, forcing me to witness everything in helplessness. My eyes were bloodshot. I struggled frantically, finally kicking the table hard, exerting all my strength. My entire body and the chair toppled to the ground. He bent down, intending to easily pull me back to continue his enjoyment. Like a madman, I tightly embraced his head, my teeth biting hard into his ear. He screamed in pain. The 2 of us wrestled on the floor, a life or death struggle. His legs kicked wildly, and I was almost thrown off. A loud bang. His foot hit the computer desk. The monitor flew violently to the ground, shards scattering in the scene of destruction. Even his 2004 version was caught in the melee. Let go of the girl! I bit his ear, roaring at the screen. I'll bite him to death. I'll definitely bite this bastard to death. But the answer for me was a searing pain in my lower abdomen. The knife plunged deep into my stomach. I clearly felt my struggling heart slowly growing cold. But in that moment, I saw it. 2004, summer night. My 2004 self, strangled, had stopped breathing. The man glued his eyes to the screen. Behind them, a little girl hesitantly stood up. Looking at the lifeless boy, her despairing eyes suddenly blazed with determination. Chloe, was the last bit of life in me. I absolutely couldn't let them find Chloe. On the shattered screen, Chloe picked up the fruit knife from the ground, swinging it with all her might. My hands were finally yanked away. 2 timelines, 2 men. Both turned their heads in astonishment. The knife in Chloe's hand plunged straight into the man's throat. 2021. Summer night part. I lay on the ground, helpless, awaiting death. The man, clutching the shattered screen, cursed Chloe on the other end. He then switched to pleading, begging Chloe to call an ambulance for him. 2004. Summer night. The boy's body lay on the floor. The man clutched his throat, trembling from suffocation. "Chloe? Your name is Chloe, isn't it?" he yelled at the screen. "By 2021, you can use this computer to call your 2004 self. That way, you can save the boy and your father. You want to save them, right? Then you have to let me live and call an ambulance for me. Only I can activate this machine. In your hands, it's just a pile of scrap metal. Let me live. You have to let me live." Even at this moment, he was still calculating every move. Chloe in the screen tightly clasped her trembling arm. Her gaze finally pierced through the man and landed on me. I wanted to tell her not to believe a word. I wanted to tell her that if I had died in 2004, I would have been a hero. I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't make a sound. The puppy-shaped birthmark. A voice pierced through 17 years, passed through the screen and reached my ears. She looked at my ankle. What I could see was growing fainter. The man was still yelling, "It's almost too late. Only if I leave can you save them." "Is that true?" Chloe's voice echoed. I raised my powerless finger, gently tapped 3 times. "So it's a lie," she muttered. "I'm not lying to you, you bitch." "I told you to call an ambulance, didn't you hear? What of the computer?" she asked. "I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you. You still have an aunt, right? She won't escape either. Do as I say," the man roared. Unfortunately, he would never understand the way Chloe and I communicated. My powerless finger gently tapped twice. The screen shattered, the image disappeared, but I heard her last words from 2004. "Alex, wait for me 17 years.